Hey, this is David Thompson, and this is going to be the third video in the series, video review series for how to play Pavlov's House. So this video is going to concentrate on phase two, the second phase of each turn of the game. So it's the German card phase. So in the overview video, the original, the first overview video, I talked very briefly about how this phase works. But just as a reminder, when you're playing the elite, the hardest level version of the game, the first thing you'll do would be to take two tactics cards. You would take those from the top of the deck, you would play those, and they would be in play for the rest of the turn. They're usually going to augment the Wehrmacht cards, or the German cards, increase the potency of these cards. Okay, so for the German deck here, you would be drawing three of the cards, and you're going to play them in order. I'm going to keep this card aside. We'll talk about that later on. You would play them in order one by one. So you'd flip over a card, reveal it, and follow the whatever the card tells you to do. Once it's complete, you go to the next, and then the third card. Okay, so I have organized all the cards so that they're organized by the type of card. So the first one we're going to talk about is the Stukas here. So this is the bombing Stalingrad Action. So what happens is when you draw this card, you'll look over into the operational level area here. And we're just going to say that, for instance, we have a couple of tokens. You're going to take the number of Stukas that are part of this card. So we have three here. So 3 Stukas are striking. The Soviet player can choose how many of the anti-aircraft tokens they want to use, if any, to defend against the Stuka strike. So for each token that's spent, so we're going to say we spend 1 token. For each token spent, you're going to roll 2 dice. So we spend 1 token, we roll a couple of dice, and for each result that's 4 or higher, it's disrupted one of the Stukas during the strike. So we have 1 success, so 1 of the 3 Stukas won't be able to attack. So that leaves 2. For each Stuka that attacks, we're going to roll 3 dice. So we'll do this twice. For the first Stuka, we roll and we get a 14. So we're going to find that number on the board. It's here. It's one of the signal battalion. So this location has been disrupted. Then we're going to do it for the other Stuka. So we will roll. And we get an 8 total. So we're going to disrupt the anti-aircraft area. Now this is a good example. I don't put a disrupt token here. Instead, because it had an anti-aircraft token on it, this token's removed. We don't actually place a disruption token. As a reminder, I talked about this very briefly in the last video. When I place this token on the signal battalion, normally that you would just place a token, but this signal battalion is special. We would take an extra fog of war and place it in the discard pile for the Soviet cards. One other thing I'll cover just real quickly. In the event that you roll like this 8 here, let's say this had been disrupted. So a location can't be disrupted twice. So if you roll a result and there's already a disruption token, you're going to go to the next higher number and put a disruption token. So for that example, let's say the token was there, I roll an 8, this location would be disrupted. Okay, so that's how bombing works. The next thing we're going to talk about is artillery strikes. So I'm just going to zoom in so we can see these. There's quite a few different pieces of artillery. They represent the different types of artillery that were used by the Germans. So depending on where they were located relative to Pavlov's house, it'll change the likelihood of what part of the building they actually hit and how much damage they can inflict. So there's a few different cards here. That's the only thing that I'm going to cover. I'm just going to use one of these as an example to walk through how it works. Once you learn how one of them works, you can easily understand all of them. So 5 is the number of dice we'll be rolling, so we'll go ahead and grab those 5 dice. This is the most powerful piece of artillery that can attack Pavlov's house. So we're going to be rolling 5 dice, but before we roll the attack, we have to see which wall is going to be hit. So green is the south-facing wall, red is the western-facing wall, and purple is the north-facing wall. Keeping in mind that the building is oriented so that west is up. So we're going to roll 1 dice. We're going to look at the result. It's a 2, so it's going to hit this green wall. Then we're going to, it's going to try to damage the green wall. Then we're going to roll all 5 dice. Remember, this 5 is how many dice we're rolling. So you're going to roll them. And we're looking to see if any of these dice is equal to or higher than the current wall defense level. So at the beginning of the game, they all start at 6. So if any of these had been a 6, it would have damaged the wall and would have lowered the defense. Obviously, the farther the defense goes down, the easier it is to hit. So in this case, we would have done no damage because we didn't roll a 6. Okay, so that's artillery. Mortars work very similarly, except it's not attacking the wall, it's suppressing defenders. So in this case, the first thing we do is which area. So we roll a dice to see what wall is being mortared, and it's going to be the green wall again. And then we see which position. So we're going to roll the dice again, and it's a 6. So it's this position that's being attacked. So if there was a defender here, we would be rolling 4 dice. That's the potency of the mortar, or the attack level. And again, we're trying to reach the defense level. So we didn't do it, but let's say the defense level had been a 4. We would have had a couple of successes here, so we're just looking for 1. So if we have 1 success, it would have successfully reached the defense of the wall, and so the counter here would be disrupted, and we would put a disrupted token on the counter. Now, if there was already a disruption token on the counter, and he was suppressed again, instead of putting a second counter there, he's been killed. He becomes a casualty and is removed. In the event that there's no counter in a position, and it was a result, so we rolled first to get the green wall, then we found 6th position, you would go, the first thing you would do is go up. So let's say we had rolled a 4, there was no one there, we would go up to 6. But in this event, we rolled a 6, so we'd actually go down to 5. So you're always going to target someone unless there's absolutely no one on that side of the wall. Okay, so that's the mortar. Next is a sniper. The sniper works in the exact same way as the mortar, except it doesn't suppress the defender. It actually kills them outright. There's only one way to stop the sniper, and that's with a first aid token, but I'll talk about that later in a different video. So just keep in mind, sniper is going to be resulting in a casualty directly. Okay, so now let's talk about placing tokens on the Wehrmacht counters on the board. So we have armor here. We have 4 different types. We have a Stug, and we have 3 different Panzers, the 2, 3, and 4. Mechanically, they all work the same way. They just have different stats. So when they come up, the first thing we're going to do is roll to see where it goes, where it's placed. So we're gonna use the Panzer 3 for example. Let's say I rolled a 1. We're going to place it on the first spot on the 1 track. Now, what if there had already been a token there? So let's say that there had already been a Panzer 3 there, and we rolled a 1. This one, the new one, will be placed there, and the one in front of him will be pushed forward. And what would happen if the entire track was full, and we had to place a new one? So if this was placed here, this would move forward, and the game would be over. The Wehrmacht would have penetrated into Pavlov's house, and the Soviet player would lose. That's the only, for the purposes of the card itself, that's all that happens. You don't actually attack or anything. The card just tells you to play a piece. It's through the tactics cards that you're allowed to attack. I'll briefly touch on how that works because I won't talk about it later on because I'm not going to cover all the tactics cards. But basically, in general, what happens is you'll draw a card. It'll either have all the armor attack or all the infantry attack or everyone. And you'll look at the combat power of all the things. It's this first number here. So all the armor will be attacking the walls that's in the same color. So you'll take all of the dice together, roll them, and you're looking for successes to strike the wall to lower the defense. Whereas all the infantry will be trying to suppress defenders. So in general, they largely work like the artillery for armor or for the mortar will work similar to the infantry. So from a placement perspective, the infantry work just the same as armor. You're going to roll to see where they get placed. And like I said, the only difference is when they're attacking, they're actually trying to suppress the defenders inside. And that's this assault card. So actually, I said it was part of the tactics, and there are tactics cards that improve this, but the card that actually allows them to attack is the assault card. So when this card comes up, all of the infantry that are in all the tracks here will attack simultaneously. All of the armor that are in the tracks here will attack, and they're, of course, attacking the walls that correlate to the color of their tracks. Okay, so that is a very quick overview of all of the German cards for the second phase of the game. Thanks for watching.